Are you ready for this? If you're a driver in the UK, I need you to pay close attention because what I'm about to tell you could seriously affect your wallet, your driving habits, and your daily routine. December 2025 is going to bring some of the biggest changes to UK motoring in decades, and I guarantee at least one of these will impact you directly. We're talking about changes that could cost you hundreds of pounds if you're not prepared, or save you money if you know what to do. Stay with me because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what's coming and how to prepare for every single change. Hello and welcome back to UK Pensioner Hub. If you're new here, this channel is all about keeping you informed on the changes, benefits, and important updates that affect everyday life in the United Kingdom, especially for those of us who've earned our wisdom over the years. Today, we're talking about something that affects millions of us every single day: driving. Whether you're popping to the shops, visiting the grandchildren, attending medical appointments, or still commuting to work, these December 2025 changes are going to be significant and far-reaching. So grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, settle in, and let's dive into what's coming down the road. Trust me, you'll want to know about every single one of these changes before they hit. The end of 2025 is shaping up to be a landmark moment for British motorists. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this could be the biggest shakeup to UK driving in our lifetimes. We're looking at changes to everything from how we pay for our roads to new technology requirements, environmental regulations, insurance modifications, and even fundamental shifts in licensing and vehicle standards. Some of these changes have been years in the making, debated in Parliament and planned by councils, while others might come as a complete surprise to many drivers who haven't been following the news closely. Let's start with one of the most talked about and controversial changes: the massive expansion of road pricing and charging zones across the entire country. Now, if you thought the ultra-low emission zones in London were controversial, generating protests and heated debates, you need to hear about what's being rolled out nationally. From December 2025, several major cities across the UK will be implementing or dramatically expanding their own clean air zones. We're talking about Manchester, Birmingham, Bristol, Newcastle, Leeds, Sheffield, and potentially dozens of smaller towns and cities following London's lead. What does this mean for you in practical terms? Well, if you're driving an older diesel or petrol vehicle, you could be facing daily charges just to enter certain areas of these cities. We're talking about fees ranging from £5 at the lower end to £15 per day in some of the larger zones. For those of us on fixed incomes, particularly pensioners who might be driving older, paid-off vehicles that have served us well for years, this could add up to hundreds of pounds per month if you need to travel through these zones regularly for shopping, medical appointments, or visiting family. The good news is that there are exemptions for some residents and certain types of vehicles, including some classic cars, vehicles used by disabled people, and in some cases, residents within the zones themselves. However, you'll need to register for these exemptions well in advance, and the process can take several weeks. My advice? Check your local council website right now, today, to see if your area is affected and what the exemption criteria are. Don't wait until November or December because you could be caught out. Now, let's talk about vehicle taxation changes, because this is huge. The government has announced a major overhaul of vehicle excise duty that's coming into effect in December 2025. This is perhaps one of the most significant changes to how we pay for road use in a generation, changing the entire philosophy behind vehicle taxation. The current system, where electric vehicles pay little to no road tax as an incentive for adoption, is being phased out completely. From December, electric vehicle owners will start paying a graduated rate of VED, starting at about £90 annually and increasing over subsequent years until it reaches parity with conventional vehicles. For those of us with traditional petrol and diesel cars, there's a bit of a mixed bag of news. Vehicles registered before 2017 will see a relatively small increase in their annual tax, probably around £15 to £20 on average. However, vehicles registered after that date with higher emissions could see quite substantial increases. Some high-emission vehicles, particularly larger SUVs and performance cars, could be paying upwards of £700 per year in road tax. The government's reasoning is clear, and they've been quite upfront about it. They want to discourage high-emission vehicles while also ensuring that everyone contributes fairly to road maintenance, regardless of what type of vehicle they drive. Here's something that might catch many drivers off guard, and it's particularly relevant if you have grandchildren learning to drive. Mandatory telematics for new drivers. Starting in December 2025, anyone who passes their driving test will be required to have a telematics device fitted to their vehicle for the first 2 years of independent driving. These are the black boxes that monitor your speed, braking, cornering, acceleration, and driving times throughout the day and night. The data will be used to assess driver safety and could impact insurance premiums significantly. Now, this doesn't affect those of us who've been driving for decades, but it's absolutely worth knowing about if you have grandchildren or younger family members learning to drive. The insurance implications are significant and could make a real difference to their costs. Good driving could see premiums drop by 30 to 40%, potentially saving young drivers hundreds of pounds. However, risky driving behavior could see them increase substantially, and insurance companies will have detailed data to justify any increases. Speaking of technology, and this is where things get really interesting for all of us. December 2025 also marks the mandatory rollout of advanced driver assistance systems in all new vehicles sold in the UK. We're talking about intelligent speed assistance, which is a system that will actively prevent your car from exceeding the speed limit. The car will read road signs using cameras and GPS data to know what the limit is, and while you can override it temporarily by pushing firmly on the accelerator, the system will reset every time you start the car. There's also mandatory automated emergency braking, which will stop your car automatically if it detects an imminent collision. There's lane keeping assistance that will actively steer your car back into lane if you drift without indicating, and driver drowsiness detection systems that monitor your steering patterns and will warn you to take a break. For some of us who've been driving for 50 or 60 years, who learned in cars with no power steering or even seat belts, this might feel like the car is taking control away from the driver. It's a significant philosophical shift in how cars operate. However, the safety statistics from European countries that have already implemented these systems are quite impressive and worth considering, with significant reductions in serious accidents, particularly rear-end collisions and lane departure crashes. If you're planning to buy a new car in late 2025 or early 2026, you'll need to familiarize yourself with these systems as they'll be standard equipment, not optional extras. My suggestion is to take an extended test drive to really understand how these systems work before making a purchase. Now, let's talk about something that affects every single one of us, whether we drive electric or conventional vehicles: fuel and charging infrastructure. December 2025 will see the completion of the government's rapid charging network expansion project. This means that every motorway service station in the UK will be required to have at least 6 rapid charging points for electric vehicles, with some larger services having as many as 12 or more. Additionally, all new residential developments and new builds will need to have charging points for every parking space, which is a significant requirement for developers. What's interesting here, and potentially concerning for many of us, is the impact on traditional petrol stations. Industry analysts are predicting that we'll see a significant number of traditional petrol stations close between 2025 and 2030, as the transition to electric accelerates and becomes more mainstream. For those of us in rural areas, this is particularly concerning and something we need to think about seriously. If you're still driving a petrol or diesel vehicle and live in a remote area, you might want to start thinking about your long-term options, because the convenience of popping to your local station might not be around forever. Some rural communities could find themselves 10 or 15 miles from the nearest petrol station within the next few years. The insurance industry is also undergoing major changes in December 2025, and this could be really good news for many of us. New regulations will require all insurance companies to offer pay-per-mile insurance options. This is particularly relevant for those of us who don't drive very much anymore, perhaps only using the car for weekly shopping trips or occasional visits to family. If you're only doing 3, 4, or 5,000 miles per year, you could save substantial amounts by switching to a pay-per-mile policy. Some estimates suggest savings of 40 to 60% for low-mileage drivers, which could mean hundreds of pounds back in your pocket. However, there's a catch, and it's important to understand this. These policies require a tracking device. either a small plug-in unit or a smartphone app to monitor your mileage accurately, raising privacy concerns for some people. You'll need to weigh up the savings against your comfort level with being tracked. For many pensioners who only use their car for occasional trips, this could be a genuine money saver and well worth considering, but you need to be comfortable with the technology. Let's discuss parking regulations because there's actually some good news here. December 2025 brings in new national standards for parking enforcement and appeals. This is actually a positive change for many of us who felt unfairly treated by parking companies. The current system, where private parking companies can issue tickets with wildly varying grace periods and charges depending on where you park, is being standardized across the board. All parking locations will need to offer a minimum 10-minute grace period, which is reasonable for genuine mistakes. Maximum charges for overstaying will be capped at £100, reduced to £60 if paid within 14 days. Additionally, the appeals process is being streamlined with an independent ombudsman service. If you've ever felt unfairly ticketed by a private parking company at a supermarket or retail park, these changes should provide better protection and fairer treatment for all drivers. Environmental regulations are getting stricter too, and this is important if you drive a diesel. From December 2025, all vehicles will need to meet tighter emissions standards at their MOT test. The acceptable limits for diesel particulates and nitrogen oxides are being reduced by about 20% from current levels. What this means in practice is that some older diesel vehicles, particularly those from 2015 and earlier, might struggle to pass their MOT without expensive repairs or modifications to their exhaust systems. If you're driving an older diesel, it might be worth getting an emissions test done before December to see where you stand. Many garages offer pre-MOT checks. The last thing you want is to fail your MOT and be faced with a repair bill of several £100 or more, potentially even £1,000 for some vehicles. For some vehicles, especially those worth less than £2,000 or £3,000, it might actually be more economical to consider replacing the car rather than repairing it to meet the new standards. Here's something important for those of us with mobility issues or disabilities. Blue Badge regulations are being updated in December 2025, and there's genuinely good news here. The good news is that automatic renewals are being introduced for those with permanent conditions. Previously, everyone had to reapply every 3 years, regardless of their condition, which was a bureaucratic burden for many people with permanent disabilities. Now, if your condition is permanent and documented, your badge will be permanent too, though you'll still need to update your photo periodically for security reasons. There are also new rules about Blue Badge misuse, with increased fines and the possibility of prosecution for those who use someone else's badge or use a badge when the disabled person isn't present in the vehicle. The fines are going up substantially to £1,000, so it's crucial to use these badges correctly and legitimately. The enforcement is also being stepped up with more camera systems and checks. Driver licensing is also seeing significant changes. From December 2025, the paper counterpart to the photocard driving license is being completely phased out and will become invalid. Everything will be digital and online. While many people have already stopped using the paper counterpart or have lost it over the years, some of us still have them, and they'll become completely invalid and unusable. All your endorsements and entitlements will be accessible through the DVLA online checking service. This is particularly important if you hire vehicles or need to show your license for any reason, such as for car rental or business purposes. You'll need to generate a unique code online that allows others to check your driving record. It's worth familiarizing yourself with this system now if you haven't already, because it can be confusing at first. For those who tow caravans or trailers, and I know many of us enjoy caravan holidays, there's important news. The towing rules that changed a few years ago for younger drivers are being extended and made more comprehensive. Anyone who passed their test after December 2025 will need to take an additional test to tow anything over 750 kilograms, which covers most caravans and larger trailers. This is being done to improve safety, as statistics show that inexperienced drivers towing large loads are involved in a disproportionate number of accidents on our roads. Finally, let's talk about something that might seem small but could have a big impact on road safety: mandatory speed limiter technology for all new vans and lorries. From December 2025, all commercial vehicles under 3.5 tons will need to have speed limiters fitted, restricting them to 70 miles per hour on motorways and 60 on single carriageways. This is primarily a commercial change affecting businesses and delivery drivers. But if you drive a van for personal use or have family members who drive for work, it's worth knowing about. So there you have it, a truly comprehensive look at the major changes coming for UK drivers in December 2025. From expanded charging zones and revised vehicle taxes to new technology requirements, insurance options, parking regulations, emission standards, and licensing changes, it's absolutely clear that the landscape of British motoring is shifting significantly and fundamentally. These changes might feel overwhelming, especially if you've been driving for decades and are comfortable with how things have always been done. Change can be difficult, particularly for those of us who remember when driving was simpler. My advice is simple and straightforward. Don't wait until December to start preparing for these changes. If you think you might be affected by clean air zone charges, look into exemptions now and get registered. If you're driving an older diesel, get your emissions checked at your local garage. If you're a low-mileage driver, research pay-per-mile insurance options and compare prices. And if you're planning to buy a new car, make sure you understand the new safety systems that will be standard equipment and take proper test drives. Change is never easy, especially when it affects something we do every day like driving. But being informed and prepared makes all the difference between being caught out and being ready. That's exactly what we're here for at UK Pensioner Hub, to help you navigate these changes with confidence, clarity, and peace of mind. If you found this video helpful and informative, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell too so you don't miss any updates. We're constantly monitoring updates and changes that affect everyday life in the UK, and we'll keep you informed every step of the way. Do you have questions about any of these changes? Are you worried about how they might affect you personally? Maybe you've already started preparing. Drop a comment below and let's discuss it together. We're a community here, and sharing our experiences, concerns, and solutions helps everyone. Your comment might help someone else who's in the same situation. Until next time, drive safely, stay informed, plan ahead, and remember that knowledge is power. This is UK Pensioner Hub, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and safe travels.